The Sports Shuffle. It is Friday, January 20th. We are on the cusp of NFL Divisional weekend. And, neither one of us are real happy with our team's results from last weekend. I am Flying Ryan Gilchrist, along with,
What the holy hell was that? Tampa Motormouth Joel Verlin.
at least as a Dolphins fan, I can kind of hold my hand held high a little bit. Bucks, that wasn't
Just,
very good.
just, I've got to jump into. I know you're going to go into the recap, and this definitely is a recap in that one. But you basically had this game, as I'll confess, I didn't watch the first half. I was engaged in something else, but I was keeping track and going, "What the hell is going on?" And then, as halftime was upon us, one half of my brain was going, "Okay, maybe, maybe they can come back." The other half of my brain was going, you've been following the Bucks all year, right, dude? Yeah, I know. And just pretty much the best way to sum up the entire game, the microcosm of this whole game was that one play, and all of a sudden, Chris Godwin caught it, squirted out of his hands, and you're thinking, okay, well, they're just going to give it to freaking Cowboys. They actually overturned it, gave it back to the Bucks, who subsequently could not do squat with it, and it ended up going to the Dallas Cowboys back. Anyway, that was pretty much summing up the entire Bucks experience. That you look at that final score and go, okay, well, 31-14. This final score was not reflective of how bad the Bucks were. If that was ever, ever a advertisement for why you freaking need running, like Forrest Gump, why you need running. That was it. Tom Brady, I think they said through it like 65 times. Dallas's defense like, oh, what's he going to do now, George?
Yeah.
I think he's gonna throw it.
Yeah, Joel,
Ugh.
the Bucks fan, not real happy with his team's performance.
Here's
I'm surprised I'm as okay with the loss as I am, but we'll get into the recaps here
At
shortly.
least, at least,
Obviously,
at least your team lost close. At least your team showed up. Good
yeah,
God.
and that was the biggest spread in a playoff game ever. And the Dolphins kept that close. Actually, had the lead in the second half, which was very
Uh,
surprising. Very good weekend of football. Book ended by the two worst games. So let's start with the 49ers
uh,
and the Seattle Seahawks. This was a game at halftime, though. 17-16 lead for the 49ers. And then they pulled away in the second half, winning 41-23. Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy's going to make the decision for the offseason for Jimmy Garoppolo and Trey Lance. What happens with both of them? Very, very interesting because he has yet to lose a game. He has looked fantastic for this team. There's people out there saying, oh, he hasn't had to lead a game winning drive. Yeah, when you're pounding teams, you don't have to do that. So that's not a criticism. Pat Mahomes doesn't have a lot of game winning drives because they're up by 30 by that point. So I'm not saying Brock Purdy is the next Pat Mahomes or anything like that, but if you can get him on the cheap in a dynasty league right now, it's not a bad option to go and just hope for the best. Trey Lance, of course, out with that broken ankle. We really haven't seen what he's able to do. But if the Niners go and get to the Super Bowl or win the Super Bowl, how do you bench Brock Purdy? Can you? I don't think you can.
yeah, because you look at the 49ers side of the offense, McCaffrey actually just not only scored the game's first touchdown, had which came on one of his first two receptions, he absolutely gashed the Seahawks. Buck 19 on 15 carries, nearly scored a second time, but of course tackled just short of the goal line on the play that, of course, preceded Purdy's sneak. And as for the Seahawks, because you're looking at the 49ers who just absolutely blew out. Well, it seemed close when you're getting to the half. You're going, okay, do we smell it like The Rock? A potential upset here because it sure seemed like it was headed that way. But hey, dear God, that second half just Geno Smith definitely played better than expected against the NFL's best defense because we've seen that all year how lethal the 49ers defense can be as $2.53, two touchdowns. Of course, the aforementioned turnovers, but he did well to attack the 49ers quarterbacks, but just seemed that the Seahawks absolutely ran out of gas when it was the second half. It just went from, okay, we have a chance to yoink.
Yeah, the Niners arguably look like the most complete team left in the playoffs. There was a lot of not great performances. We're going to talk about a couple big upsets, and the Seahawks held tough. Geno Smith was the quarterback 5 on the season for fantasy, more of a compilation than a great performance after great performance. But the Seahawks 9-8 got to the playoffs when no one expected. So I think it's a season the Seahawks and the Seattle fans can really be proud of. We'll see what happens with Geno in the offseason, impending free agent. And I think he wants to come back. The Seahawks probably want him back. We'll see if they maybe go after somebody in the draft. They do have the number 5 overall pick from Denver. But San Francisco will move on, and they look like a very tough out at a minimum the rest of the way in the playoffs. We'll move on. I would say this or the Dolphins game was the game of the week.
You have to,
Chargers,
with the
Jaguars.
deficit that was at halftime at this one, you have to give it to this one.
You have to give it this
Easily.
one. The only reason I'm saying it might not be is because at one point this game was 27-0, and it was people gave up on it. I know half the people I talked to in a group chat about football exclusively went to bed. They didn't see the comeback. It was 27-0. Good night, lights out.
I was trying to decide, because this is made by a well-known social media video influencer where, oh yeah, this guy met such and such on the Jacksonville Jaguars. He fell asleep and he woke up and to find out. And just you have to wonder how many of those vids are real, genuine, and it's like how many are at the most overused word in or one of them in 2022, sus.
Yeah. Anyways, Chargers get a 27-0 lead in the second quarter, and then they did what the Chargers do best, and they blew the game real bad, losing on the last second field goal, 31-30. Trevor Lawrence, 4 picks in the first half, 3 in the first quarter.
Did you see
still got the win.
the new logo of the Chargers is actually the Falcons logo, but it's in Charger colors.
Yeah, the other option would have been to have a Colt logo made out of the lightning bolts because they were both real bad. But the Chargers in the second half, they stopped running the ball with Austin Eckler, which is what you want to do when you have a big lead. Trevor Lawrence, 4 touchdowns end of the second quarter into the end of that game, did come back and play very well in the second half and late second quarter, but 4 picks early. This game looked like it was going to be over. Jacksonville was silent in the stands. The Jags look like a team that if they're on can beat anybody, which makes them dangerous. The problem is they also look like a team that can't play 60 full minutes. We'll see how that fares against the Chiefs as they will play them next week.
Because you look at Herbert's numbers, decent PPR, but very poorly if you were dependent upon touchdowns, just a touchdown. And keep in mind, this was against one of the worst pass defenses in the NFL. So it just absolutely boggles my mind how Staley still has a job after that complete utter epic collapse. The fourth quarter, it showed how much they needed another option, how much they needed Mike Williams in there as another option for Justin Herbert, as of course the very foolish decision. Oh, in a meaningless game, that means absolutely squat. I'm going to play one of our most valuable assets of the offense. Why?
That was the reason I picked the Jag, was that Mike Williams injury I thought would be a big factor. It didn't look that way early, but that second half, they could have really used a big body possession receiver to keep the chains moving. And now we go to Sunday. A lot of disappointing performances from the favorites in these games, starting with the Buffalo Bills. They do get the win 34-31 over the Miami Dolphins.
Remember how it was? All 3 Florida teams are in the playoffs. Yay!
No, one's still standing.
Okay.
Dolphins, though, 31 points with a third-string quarterback against Buffalo Bills defense is something to be concerned with for Buffalo. The turnovers did not help. Josh Allen had 3 of them, including a costly fumble that went back for a touchdown. So the Dolphins defense showed up and played well. But the Bills get the job done 34-31. I don't think if you're a Bills fan, you come out of this game feeling more confident about your team's chances of going to the Super Bowl. Maybe it was this team overlooking the Dolphins, third-string quarterback Skylar Thompson, and just didn't show up to play like they should have. But the Dolphins end their season at 9-8. They do not have a first round pick because it was forfeited because tampering with Brady and Sean Payton and all that fun stuff that got the owner suspended for a while.
Hashtag
Buffalo,
also
though,
Brian Flores.
yeah.
That was
Buffalo,
the
though, will
that
advance and host a playoff game next week.
yeah, because that was the main reason. Because all of a sudden you had Brady doing things in smoke-filled back rooms, allegedly with the Miami front office, and then everything was thinking that something might develop. But then, of course, you had the Brian Flores situation, utterly, literally explode in the national media, going from absolutely nothing to humongous, where everyone's talking about it. So, yeah, that sort of just put the nix on the whole Brady maneuvers.
Yeah. All right. Next up, the upset of the week, I believe. Giants 34 or 31-24 win over the Minnesota Vikings, and they looked completely solid throughout this game. The Vikings, this defense is bad. They just have to get better. That has to be the focus in the offseason and the draft, to get that defense more solidified, because that offense was fine. Kirk Cousins was not the problem. Justin Jefferson disappeared again. Teams are going to start keying on him to stop him going forward. Adam Thielen's a pending free agent, so it could just be Justin Jefferson and TJ Hawkinson. Hawkinson looked fantastic, but the Giants, Saquon Barkley had a big game. And the Giants, when they get in the playoffs and they win, they tend to make a deep run. They will face Philadelphia next week. Going to be a tough matchup. They did get swept by the Eagles this year, although mostly backups in that second game. So we'll see how the Giants fare. But the Vikings, 13-4 regular season, 11-0 in one-score games in the regular season, 0-1 in the playoffs in one-score game. So the Vikings, very disappointing end to the season as the favorite goes down in this one.
Because Daniel Jones, who all of a sudden has morphed into a phenom this late as we reach the Elite Eight of the NFL, he did a good job spreading the ball around, not just concentrating on one target. And Barkley has just been reborn. All of a sudden, he had the neck injury. Middle of the season, he was 50-50. He kind of had good games, had bad games, but huge performance. Maybe not with PPR, but he scored twice. And you had Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley put the teams on their shoulders and got them past it. Yeah, everyone's wondering, are the Vikings pretenders or contenders? Yeah, I think it's more the first after this game, because they played well. The Giants just absolutely outplayed them. And
Yeah, and
you also have to wonder about Dalvin Cook, who, even though he outgained Barkley, not exactly as strong of a game.
no, a lot of question marks about his future. I don't think he's going to be out of the league by any sense stretch of the imagination, but he is starting to get up there in age, has had some injury history in the past. Quick reminder, though, for the Giants, they will have a third place schedule next season. So this could be a team big time on the
Mhm.
rise going into 2023. And they still have time to technically win a Super Bowl this year. All right, next up, another disappointing performance in a win. This time it is for the Cincinnati Bengals, a 24-17 win over the Ravens. That was the cause of one play for the most part. A Tyler Huntley dive over the top QB sneak attempt from about the 2-yard line that does not make it. A punch out fumble return, 98 yards for a touchdown that gives Cincinnati their 7-point lead that ended up being the margin of victory. The Ravens had a third string quarterback going for them. Or no, Tyler Huntley's a second, but they were playing Brown, the third stringer, for a while before this. Huntley came back, played okay, but the Bengals and Bills will be playing next week. Of course, everything that happened a few weeks ago with DeMar Hamlin's going to be bubbling to the surface again because, well, it's a big story, and it did cancel this game a few weeks ago. But both of these teams also going to be coming off a fairly disappointing performance in a win. I know divisional matchups can get funky, but the Bengals do get the job done. They will go to Buffalo, which, frankly, they talked about having a coin flip if the Ravens had won the last week of the regular season between the Ravens and the Bengals. They should probably coin flip this Bills Bengals game in theory too for who gets home field, because if the Bengals win, they would have been the 2 seed.
For this game, I think you definitely had something happen that one wonders how it's going to affect this weekend's game, of course, with the Jonah Williams suffering an injury and already missing Lael Collins, as you have to wonder how much that line is going to affect the game this weekend. Of course, Jamar Chase being Jamar Chase generated nearly half of Joe Burrow's production. You had T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd, probably frustrated DFS managers big time. Another person who frustrated DFS managers would be Joe Mixon, just 39 yards on 11 carries, definitely non-miss Mixon esque numbers. And Ravens actually had better success running the ball with Dobbins, but just you have to wonder in an alternate universe with Lamar Jackson, would they have won the game absolutely stunning the Bengals and not having that matchup that everybody was looking forward to next this week?
Yeah, you can definitely make the case if Tua and Lamar Jackson are playing, we're looking at both of those teams advancing with how their teams played in their absence. But alas, both are going to be eliminated. Uh, Bengals Bills are going to be probably the highlight game of the week, in my opinion, because of everything that happened a few weeks ago. Um, both teams disappointing week this week, but have played very well all year long. Then we go to the Monday night finale. Joel already kind of told you how well that went for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but a 31-14 win for the Dallas Cowboys. Brett Maher, 4 missed extra points. He did hit one at the end, but not a great night from the Dallas Cowboys kicker, who was great all year if you had him in fantasy and you play leagues with kickers. The Buccaneers season is over. Tom Brady almost certainly not going to return to the team. It could be time for a full teardown. Players like Mike Evans that are a little bit older, they could find their way out of town just to free up some cap space. The cap space for Tampa Bay is not great. We'll see what happens with Tom Brady if he retires or if he goes to another team. Maybe that cap hit is reduced well enough to keep this team together. But Tampa Bay,
Yeah,
they're looking for a new
yeah.
quarterback. They're looking for a lot of new coaching positions as they fired Leftwich and several others. And yeah,
Oh
tough
yeah,
time
there
for
was
Tampa.
a whole slew of coaches fired. Three, including Clyde Christensen, a well-known name in Tampa. One of three coaches who retired. So they look like they basically just cleaned house everybody except for Bowles, who dodged the pink slip there. As I mentioned in my when I was sort of going on my mini rant about the no running for the Bucks. Yeah, Buccaneers had nothing on the ground. Rashad White 41 yards, and the playoff Lenny not so much. Even worse with 11 yards on 5 attempts, which is why Brady had to throw it so much, and
Yeah.
you can't win like that.
Yeah, Fournette's not going to be back in Tampa, I don't think. They got to get rid of him. He's looking real bad the last few weeks. Rashad White might have some juice, and I think if you get a quarterback that's got some mobility, maybe this team could still compete. It's a very bad division. Remember, everybody was below 500. So Tampa Bay, they could still be a contending team. Unfortunately for Tampa Bay, they're an 8-9 team. Going to have a pick right around pick number 20. I haven't looked at the updated draft with everything going on, but
It's
the Cowboys fans.
like the NFC least, which was last year, and the NFC South traded paradigms.
Yeah, the NFC least, and now the NFC sucks for the NFC South. The
Yeah,
Dallas Cowboys, though,
very apt.
looking at the positive, they will go on to the next round. They will play the San Francisco 49ers in Santa Clara. Best of luck to the Cowboys because, like I said earlier, San Francisco looks like an absolute buzzsaw right now. But Dallas, you've seen them play some games like the one against Minnesota where they just show up and they beat people badly. So should be a good weekend going into next week. We did mention Byron Leftwich and several of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers coaching staff has been fired, as well as defensive coordinator Josh Boyer for the Miami Dolphins and offensive coordinator for the Los Angeles Chargers, Joe Lombardi. I think as a Dolphins fan, we saw how good this defense was with similar pieces under Brian Flores. So to see this defense kind of fall apart this year, probably a good idea to bring someone else in, get the new blood going. And then for Joe Lombardi, he took the fall, I think, for Brandon Staley on this one. The offense did not produce in the second half, and that's not good. But we'll see. You got Justin Herbert. You got some good weaponry around him. Austin Eckler, of course, in that backfield, still an absolute beast. So a desirable job there. Good pieces for Miami. So hopefully some good coaching candidates will come to the fore. And did Brian Daboll's win this week lock in his coach of the year? I think it
Nope.
had to have.
Yeah. I haven't seen anything yet, but when you
Yeah,
knock off the
it's not
Vikings,
official, but I was talking a couple weeks back where it's like you're looking at Pete Carroll because we expected so negative. You're expecting Doug Peterson to get some consideration, and then it was Brian Dable because he got a team to the playoff that nobody expected, and they're the only teams that gets out of that with a really like comfortable win. I think it kind of locks them in. I guess Peterson's still in the hunt too, but anyways, we will move on to the divisional round, and we'll get to our picks. So the matchups in order of being played tomorrow at 4:30, Jacksonville at Kansas City. Tomorrow, Saturday at 8:15, New York Giants at Philadelphia Eagles. On Sunday, I believe 3 p.m., Cincinnati at Buffalo. That's a big one. Then the nightcap at 6:30, Dallas at San Francisco. So we'll start tomorrow. The Jacksonville Jaguars, fresh off the 27-point comeback against another AFC West team, go to Kansas City to face Pat Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. This should be a higher scoring game. These two teams did play earlier in the season, and the Chiefs won 27-17. So keep that in mind. They have played. This is what sparked the Jaguars. After this loss, Doug Peterson went I have a crystal ball. Week 18 is going to matter. That whole thing that came out when they played the Titans, that was following the loss to Kansas City. And they put a good fight up in that game. They put a good fight up against Philadelphia. So this is a scrappy team that is by no means out of it, even though Kansas City is going to be a comfortable favorite. Kansas City is Kansas City. If they win, the possibility of a neutral site AFC game for the championship, that's still on the table. We'll see how Buffalo Cincinnati goes as well for that. But obviously, anytime we're in the playoffs, a big game. Joel and I both 5-1 last week on picks, so we remain tied. So big game for the picks as well. So Joel, who do you got?
yeah, the Jaguars have definitely been in the divisional round in year one of the Doug Peterson rebuild. In this year two for Trevor Lawrence, so they're definitely heading in the right direction. But as amazing a year as they have, beating the Titans, getting the division crown, and then absolutely upsetting the Chargers. Yeah, I just don't feel they're on the level of Andy Reid and Pat Mahomes quite yet. It's just you have the Chiefs just they have injuries. They just plug different people in. They're almost like the Borg. Okay, this one goes down. Well, put somebody in there, and they do awesome. And they're like a WR1 or RB1. And I just tend to think that it's going to be a bit of a blowout for the Jaguars, and they're going to learn that okay, we're we're in the big leagues now when it comes to the playoffs, and I think the Chiefs take care of business and they do it wholeheartedly. It's going to be a bit of a bitter loss for the Jaguars. I think it's going to. I say Chiefs 30, Jaguars 20. I think the Chiefs definitely cover, and because when the Jaguars have to come back from that far down, throw and run, and that much exertion on defense, they have to be a little bit gassed. And you just have to wonder, are they looking forward to the conference championship? Although I don't think anyone looks past the Chiefs, but yeah, they've had a heck of a year. I still think they need some more pieces, but got to pick the Chiefs. It's hard to go against them.
I'm going to make a lot of arguments on why the Jags could win this game while picking the Chiefs. I am going to take Kansas City. You mentioned fatigue. I also think that this could be a confidence building win, that they could play that bad and come back against a very solid team, could give this team even more confidence. They did play tough against Kansas City the first time around. They have been playing better of late. And Kansas City's defense is not great. So if Trevor Lawrence doesn't make those 4 interceptions, they probably blow out the Chargers, and there's confidence in that respect as well. That being said, Pat Mahomes, he doesn't lose games like this very often. I don't think he's ever been knocked out in the divisional round of his career yet. And Jacksonville was the number 1 overall pick the last 2 seasons before this one. To go from back-to-back number 1 overall picks to the AFC Conference Championship would be just a monumental, unheard of step in the right direction for a team. And at some point, you have to understand that we're looking at Kansas City, Cincinnati, Buffalo as the 3 teams we all expected to be here. There was a 4th team. Jacksonville, not on our radar. I don't think they're ready to step up to the challenge. I do think they keep it close. I think they lose this game probably 33-30 type of deal. I think
So
it's
you
going to be a higher
would
scoring game.
you would take Jacksonville with the spread.
I would take Jacksonville. Do you know what the current spread is?
Current spread is, hold on, 8.5
Oh yeah,
Jaguars.
definitely. I definitely think they keep it within a touchdown. I think they could, I think this could look kind of similar to Dolphins Bills last week, where there's a point in the third quarter going, Jags are up. What's going on here? Jags are winning. But I think Kansas City ultimately gets the job done, and we move on. All right, next up, Giants go to Philadelphia to play the division rival Eagles. They were swept by the Eagles this year. Second game, they played a lot of their backups, so I think the Giants can put that on the back burner. But the first time they got smacked by Philadelphia. Jalen Hurts back healthy, didn't look great the last week, but didn't have to. Just got the job done to get the number one overall seed. Coming off the bye and having those couple of weeks off, we'll see how Jalen Hurts responds if there is any kind of rust, because you've only played one game in the last month and you didn't play well in that one. For the Giants, this is the Cinderella story. I'd love to say Jacksonville is the Cinderella story, but I think the Giants, we didn't expect them to be anywhere near the playoffs either, and let alone to look this dominant in what is a very tough division to get to a winning record. I think we're all very, very surprised by that result. Philadelphia, though, has a very good defense, but you beat Philadelphia running the ball, and we've already talked about how good Saquon Barkley has been this year, let alone last week against the Vikings. Philadelphia, though, world beaters, number one overall seed in the NFL. Who gets the win?
Yeah, because you look at injury, which is definitely key thing for this time of year. You definitely look on Devonta Smith's side as that quarterback definitely having some injury issues, and that could open him up for Jalen Hurts to do his magic. Now, the only question you have about Jalen Hurts is which Jalen Hurts do we see? Do we see, as you mentioned, do we see a rusty Jalen Hurts, which is still probably good enough to get by and beat the Giants? Or do we see prime Jalen Hurts, the kind of Jalen Hurts that if you were a fantasy manager, you start him to sort of kick back, put your arms behind your head, and just like, okay, we're just going to coast again through this week because he just puts up so many freaking points. It's ridiculous. So I know the Giants have had an amazing playoff run by smacking around the Vikings and getting past them, but Jalen Hurts is totally different than Kirk Cousins. He's on a different level completely. He just needs to get some help, maybe from Miles Sanders, maybe from Boston Scott. Somebody needs to help the dude out so it's not a totally one-dimensional thing. But yeah, I know Giants have had an amazing year, very surprising year. Brian Dable just to be in the divisional round in his first year as a coach, but I just think they're sort of out of their league with the Eagles, and I think the Eagles take it quite handily. I'd say 31-17, with the Giants being 17.
Yeah, I think the Eagles win this game as well. Another good run comes to an end here to the hands of the number one seed in the conference. The Giants, I think they do hang tough. I don't think it's quite as close as Jacksonville, but I think Philadelphia wins this game somewhere along the lines of 30-23. I just think this is another team that's just not quite ready to take that next step. And Philadelphia, they blew the Giants out the only time they played both sides with their starters. So the whole it's hard to beat a team three times in the same season. Yeah, that's at play, but the Giants didn't really play the last game. And I do think Jalen Hurts is going to come out and be good. And that's going to be a key thing
What
here.
do you think? What do you think? I'm curious. Sports Shop Audible. What do you think about the whole thing about Hurt saying that people have a bounty on him?
I don't know. I think anytime you're a running quarterback, you entice the defense to want to hit you because I mean, it's beneficial for your team to hit the quarterback. We've seen it with Tom Brady. He struggles when there's a good pass rush. If you want to run like crazy, we saw it with Justin Fields. He got beat up really, really badly when he'd had to do it. So I don't
Especially
know if
with
it's a bounty, but I think it's just the
especially with
mentality of the
especially with
defenders to kill him.
that hit one hit from the Dom Consu.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. If you want to run around, the defense wants to hit you. And that's just how it is. If you can hit the quarterback and they don't get up, that's actually a benefit for your team. I don't think it's a bounty, but if you're going to run around, you're going to give yourself opportunities to get hit, and some of those are going to connect. All right, so 2 for 2 on agreement so far. Kansas City and Philadelphia. Moving on to probably the hardest game to pick of the weekend.
The game.
Yeah, this is the game everybody's going to be circled and looking forward to. There's also a game I'm going to be playing hockey during the first half of, so that's great.
Ryan will be checking his phone as much as he can.
Hopefully, we're on the rink where I can see the TV in the rink.
You'll be like, hey, yo, can you put on the games, please?
Hey, can you get on side? Oh, it's the second quarter. I'm watching football. No, but we can't play because you're over there and we can't go. And okay. Anyway, Cincinnati at Buffalo.
It's a fantasy football mindset. Even if you don't have any fantasy that you're playing, you still think about it.
You still have the football obsession. So, Cincinnati at Buffalo. Obviously, everything with Damar Hamlin happened. That game did not conclude, but it was 7-3. Cincinnati looked very good in the start. Can't really take a whole lot of solace in that. Now, both teams look bad at home. Buffalo disappointing against Miami. Cincinnati disappointing against Baltimore, both playing backup quarterback. So both teams, I think, are going to come out with a different level of focus than they did last week, and they're going to play considerably better. Cincinnati is the defending AFC champions, and Buffalo was pretty much anointed and crowned the heir apparent to the Chiefs this year.
You saw how many tickets they already sold for the neutral site for the conference championship.
Neutral site again. If Kansas City and Buffalo win, because Buffalo would have gotten the 1 seed with a win over Cincinnati in the game that was canceled. As a result, if both of those two teams, Kansas City and Buffalo, advance, it will be a neutral site game in Atlanta at Mercedes-Benz. Anyways. Both teams have a lot to prove. Both teams have a lot on the line, obviously. And with everything that went on, I think there's going to be a different level of focus and emotion in this game. So who gets the win?
Yeah, both teams are pretty decently matched. You definitely have some concern about the Bills' defense without Von Miller, of course. And then you have some concerns, some big-time concerns, I believe, with, as I mentioned when we were talking about the Bengals-Ravens game, the two front-line offensive line who are now not in the game, and you're going to wonder how that will impact Joe Burrow for this game this weekend. They has to watch for pressure from that side and pay attention maybe to this side as opposed to that side. So just kind of craziness how you're going to wonder if the Bengals can have another incredible play like when Hubbard, of course, did the crazy run back after that whole fumble sequence and then needed the oxygen on the sideline. If it's going to take something like that for the Bengals to get by the Bills. But then again, then you saw the Bills when they came out supercharged, and you had Naheem Hines, of course, do the run back for the touchdown. So you have the DST and the special teams that can definitely step up. I think it's going to go back and forth. I think the main key factor and why I'm picking the Bills, I think this would be a very crazy game to have to pick against the spread, but it's going to be a close one. I'm going to say Bills 23, Bengals 20, but I think it's going to be a hard-fought game, and the main key difference will be, of course, the two offensive line injuries that will definitely have more pressure on Joe Burrow, and the main intangible, Damar Hamlin in the building with the Bills all week, possibly there for sure in the press box. They would be nuts not to have him there. Definitely giving the Bills that bit of extra boost. That's intangible. It's just something you cannot quantify, and it just sort of pushes the team a little bit harder than the Bengals. I think it's going to be a hard-fought game that can go either way. I just think the Bills have just that little extra emotional oomph to go on to the next stage.
I think this is a 28-27 game. I think this is going to be a razor-thin margin, and I think the key is going to be turnovers, not the offensive line. We saw Joe Burrow get sacked like crazy last year and get to the Super Bowl. Should have won that game if he hits a wide-open receiver late in that game. I'm going to take Cincinnati. I trust Joe Burrow a lot more to to protect the ball right now. Josh Allen had some turnover problems all season. He was the leader in red zone interceptions. He had, I think, 20 total turnovers. So once you include the fumbles, and we saw it almost cost him the game last week. I think Cincinnati's defense is good enough to keep them in this game. Buffalo's not going to run away. We saw them. Their offense is still going to be very good. Buffalo's defense is not what they were hoping it was going to be. So I think Cincinnati goes into Buffalo. I do believe there's going to be that emotional element that starts the game. The crowd's going to be going in a frenzy. They're going to put DeMar Hamlin on the Jumbotron if he's in attendance to try and help this team get ramped up. But if Cincinnati comes out, gets a touchdown early, like they did the first time this game was attempted, I could see that crowd starting to get nervous again. We saw them get very nervous last week, and the whole team responded negatively when the Dolphins started rallying back and eventually got the lead. I think Cincinnati's a good enough team where they, if they get ahead, they're not going to blow it like the Dolphins did. So I'm going to take Cincinnati in a very, very close game. And I figured that one, if anything, was going to be the one we differentiate on this week because, Joel, you're not going to be surprised if Cincinnati wins, and I'm not going to be surprised if Buffalo wins by any stretch of the imagination.
It's going to be that close of a game.
This is literally last possession. What do you do with it? Kind of football.
When you're talking about a spread that's 5.5, you know it's close.
Yeah. All right. Last game, Dallas at San Francisco. Dallas with a good win over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the wild card round. San Francisco a great win over the Seattle Seahawks in that second half. San Francisco has not lost a game since the Christian McCaffrey trade. Brock Purdy has never lost a game in his NFL career. The Dallas Cowboys won a game. They do not typically have playoff success. The San Francisco 49ers went into Dallas last year in the postseason and ended the Cowboys season. So Dallas looking to return the favor this year. Dak Prescott had one of his best games, at least in his playoff career last week against Tampa Bay. Didn't need it, but he still had it. San Francisco, though, that defense is absolutely legitimate. This could be a very low-scoring game because Dallas has a solid defense as well. But Christian McCaffrey, Ezekiel Elliott, CeeDee Lamb, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, Dalton Schultz. There's weapons on top of weapons on top of weapons. This game should be very, very entertaining. I don't know if it's going to be high-scoring, low-scoring, somewhere in the middle. Again, both have solid offenses. Both have great defenses. Both could be good at both and shut each other down. I don't know. But this is a chance for Dallas to write the narrative that they can't get it done in the playoffs. San Francisco hasn't been this deep in the playoffs since the last Super Bowl run a few years ago. And they'd like to get back there. So who gets the win?
Because you just, there's a meme out there. You have Dak with one of his teammates, and he says, okay, and like the teammate is like, I'm scared, Dak. We have to play real teams now. So it's just like, ooh, and there's another one where you have Brett Maher, and that it's somebody put Lucy yoinking the ball away from him. So I'm like, okay, so that's so fitting. But in all seriousness, you have to wonder how close to a bye week that was, and with the Buccaneers game, and how miserable it was as a. And then you end up having to go from Tampa cross country to Santa Clara to the 49ers where they play. And the question is, you mentioned 49ers being a buzzsaw. Brock Purdy seems to be unstoppable. It doesn't matter who goes down. They're like the Chiefs. Boom, let's put Ray in there. Ray does good. Boom, let's put this one in there. That one does good. CMC, it's like Saquon Barkley. He's having a rebirth right now in the NFL. So all of a sudden it's like, yoo-hoo, I'm out of Carolina. Happy times are here again. I have a real team. So
yeah,
I tend to think that they'll do just enough because the 49ers really haven't played, I think, too many real defenses this year. They shred teams. Cowboys defense is legit. I think it's going to be a bit of a low scoring game because you said how much scoring will be in this game. I don't think this is going to be the shootout of the weekend by any stretch. So somewhere in the middle. And I think the 49ers get just enough to get her done. And yeah, they're going to show the Cowboys. Guess what? You ain't in Ray J. You ain't in Tampa anymore. You're in our house, and they're going to take it to them, and they're going to win. It's not going to be like a blowout like like that the 35-7 against the Bucks. Good God, in the regular season, but it's going to be enough to get on to the next round. 49ers.
I think San Francisco does win this game and wins it pretty handily. I'm going to say 24-10. Dak Prescott has some turnover problems, and this defense will capitalize on it. I think Brock Purdy's good enough, and the coaching staff is smart enough to make the right decisions and the right throws. They will get Christian McCaffrey heavily involved and Elijah Mitchell to carry some slack when they need to give CMC a break. And then they will keep those short passes going for Brock Purdy. And then when you have the opportunity, he'll go over the top, but he'll do it intelligently. I just think that Purdy's going to play a cleaner and smarter game than Dak Prescott. And as a result, I think San Francisco gets the job done, and they get it done fairly easily. All right, so that's our picks. We do have one different pick, so that will be we won't be tied going into the conference championship game. 7 total games left to go.
The only team that let me down, yeah, that'd be my Bucks.
Yeah, I'd pick the Vikings because I believed in Kirk Cousins, and that's the thing you should never do. Speaking of things you shouldn't believe in, Joel, I think you've got something on your mind for your final thought.
Yep, as definitely there was. I'm looking for where it was, where it took place. It doesn't tell me, but yeah, there's a man who ended up posting the fact that he ended up going to McDonald's for just going and grabbing a burger, grabbing a whatever. All of a sudden, he finds in the bag $5,000 of McDonald's money that obviously is a deposit for the day. So he's posting a video. Says, "Yeah," he says, "I've got to go ahead. I've got to take this back. It's not mine." Nice to know. There's still hope for the world, folks. Takes it back. The McDonald's employee is absolutely ecstatic because you got to believe they were freaking out like, oh my god,
I'm getting fired.
where's the deposit? There goes my job. I'm toast. He returns the bag, gets a hug, and for his trouble, he actually not only gets $200, but free McDonald's for a month. I'd say he made out pretty nicely for being a good guy, and that's my final thought.
Yeah. My thought is not so nice. A few years ago, Josh McDaniels was supposed to be the head coach of the Indianapolis Colts. He mysteriously backed out of the job and went back to New England for a while.
Oh, I saw this one.
And then he recently became the head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders, had a 6-11 season this year. The story behind his why didn't he go to the Colts? He had agreed to the job. He was going to the Colts, and then he backed out to go back to New England. The story never came out until very recently. The sources inside the Colts, great. Got this today from Dan Dockich. McDaniel's wife made him pull the plug after having Irsay in their home in Massachusetts and observing his odd behavior. Behavior that included being in McDaniel's family bathroom for a very long and awkward period of time. Jim Irsay lost the head coach willingness to be the head coach of the Colts over his ability to take massive dumps. That's what that story means. His wife basically said that guy blew up her bathroom. He was in there for over an hour. I don't know what he was doing. I don't know why he couldn't have held it in longer, but because he destroyed their bathroom, she said, "You cannot work for that man." Could you imagine going to work tomorrow or on Monday, having to take a dump, having your boss walk in, sniff it, and say, "You're fired"? Like, how bad do you have to smell to not to be like, "No, I don't want to work for you, man. I can't look you in the eye again."
There was a story on the flip side of the employee, and I don't know where it was because they didn't post where it was, but apparently there was a workplace that the boss put like a finger scanner on the bathroom door, and it tracked how long you were in the bathroom. If you were in there longer than 10 minutes a day, you were written up.
Jim Irsay would have gotten written up 6 times for his massive, nasty, stinky, horrific dump in Josh McDaniel's family home in Massachusetts. And his wife said, "You cannot work for that man."
I think you mixed them up. You mean Josh McDaniels was the one that was
Yeah, he was hosting Irsay. Irsay took the
Oh,
dump
okay.
in Josh McDaniels' home.
Oh,
He was like, "I'm going to come see you and give you a head coaching job." Josh McDaniels said, "Oh, that sounds great." And then Jim Irsay destroyed his bathroom. And his wife
oh
said,
Lord.
"You are not getting anywhere near that man because I'm not living through this nightmare again."
Yeah, we have to wonder about Persay's habits.
Yeah, there's a lot of theories going around that we're not going to talk about.
Yep.
Um, I think one of the theories is called a Canadian Sunday morning. If you want to look that up, you go right on ahead. It's not something we're going to say on here. And there was also
Yeah.
drug possibilities in the some of the theories as well. So we're not going to go that far. We're just going to say
We try to keep it a PG podcast
we're just
here.
going to say he made a dump like an elephant and destroyed the bathroom, and that was enough because frankly, that fits our brand a lot better and is the funniest solution of that story out
So
there.
I
So
guess you could say he flushed the job.
yeah, I mean, you really crapped the bed on that interview. Apparently he crapped on everything. Anyways, I am flying Ryan Gilchrist along with.
Tampa Motormouth, Joel Verlin.
And we'll be back next week to recap these 4 games, talk about the conference championships. I guess we'll technically have to talk about the Pro Bowl because they've changed the format on that at least a little bit. It's probably not going to be watchable or any good, but it's going to be different at least. And yeah, we'll get ready for the end of the NFL season. We'll see who's ahead in picks with 3 games to go and all kinds of other fun stuff. So with that, we